Hello Wargamers, it's me Callum from Tabletop Banter, and in today's video we are going to look at movement in the 9th Age from a beginner's perspective. So, what I've done here is I've set up a nice little example so we can go over the movement phase in the 9th Age. Now, it can be argued that this is one of the most important phases of the game. The reason being, this is where you make the moves that set up potential charges, etc, etc. I'll just move this slightly more into the screen so we can see the banner. What I decided to do here was set up a little example with 2 units. So I can go through the steps you take in a turn, basically, and your options. And obviously on the right hand side of the screen you can see the rulebook of the 9th Age up there, explaining the movement phase as we go along. So let's start obviously by looking at that page, and we can see that there is a sequence. Now the movement phase sequence is quite simple. It does it in nice easy steps, and we start with the start of the movement phase is declaring charges. Now what I'm going to do to help make this a little easier is go through this one army at a time. So let's just say these the blue dwarfs are one army and these red dwarfs are another. Now we'll start with the blue dwarfs. They all have crossbows, I believe. Oh no, this is the unit that doesn't have crossbows. This is the handgunner unit. Irrelevant because I won't be doing any shooting, I just want to explain movement, but that's what they are. They're clan marksmen with handguns. So the first thing they've got to do is declare a charge if they want to. Now obviously they're not going to charge into some great weapon wielding blokes here, so they're not going to declare a charge. So then we go on to 4, 5 and 6, compulsory moves, remaining moves, and end of the movement phase. So that's all to do with charging. So here we are, compulsory moves. Now some particular units have compulsory moves, but most of them don't. However, there are other compulsory moves to be made. So first of all, rally tests. Now this is important obviously if you have a fleeing unit, or a unit that is fleeing either from losing combat or a previous charge reaction. You have your rally test. If these rally tests, or rally test/tests are failed, then you must make a flee move, which is explained in depth below. So basically this is part of your running away process. The rulebook obviously goes in much further detail. I am trying to give you a nice overview so you can understand the importance of the movement phase. But basically, if you fail a rally test, you must perform a flee move, and a fleeing unit is very crippled in what it can do. It can't charge, declare any other charge reaction other than flee. It can't shoot, it can't channel, cast spells, dispel, or anything like that. So obviously that's pretty bad. You don't want to be fleeing unless obviously that's what you put the unit in the army for, like with chaff or something. Anyway, I digress. That's the compulsory move section. So we're on to remaining moves. Now this is where we start to look at this particular unit here. Now really this particular unit has no need to move, but I'm going to explain it for the purposes anyway. So first of all, what we can see here is a rather small gap between these 2 units. Now, you'd probably want to run away, but because it's almost a given that they might get in, they may as well make the most of their shooting phase. Now, the options you have for moving are listed over here on the page in the bottom right hand corner. So, first of all, you can advance. I can speak. And if you advance, this means you can perform a regular move. Now moving forward, it moves the movement statistic from the unit, which in the dwarf's case is 3 inches. You can march, which doubles it, except dwarves have a special rule. I believe they have a special rule, which means if you're marching you can triple it, so they would get a 9-inch march as opposed to a 3-inch move. And you could reform, which means you can basically around the center you can move the unit like that. And you can swift reform if you have, I believe it's the musician. Let me just see here. Which is where you basically have to take a leadership test, and then you can do a bit more moving, basically. But if you go backwards on any move, it is half the number of inches. and if you go sideways, it's half its movement as well. So it explains it very nicely there in the remaining moves section. So for this particular unit, I don't really want to move them because they're going to be shooting, but for the purposes of explaining how they move, I am going to do a march. Let's do a march. So I'm going to grab my tape measure here just to explain how you move in rank and file games, because it's a little bit different to your standard sort of facing doesn't matter kind of game like 40k. So this front line here is the most important part of the movement tray. Well, pretty much, because that's your line of sight. Now, that's going out of this way or this way. I can't remember the exact number of degrees. Again, that's something in the rulebook. I will just see if it's on a convenient page, because it should be kicking around somewhere. No, I don't think so. I digress. We're on to the remaining moves. So, if I want to move this unit 4 inches, I can't just pick it up 4 inches and say, oh, well, that bit goes to there, I can just spin him round. You have to wheel. So wheeling is done by taking the edge that moves the longest distance. Now let's say, I know I've got 9 inches of movement here with the march, but I just want to move 4. So you just take the 4 and, well, actually you just wheel like that. So there's 2 inches and then 2 further forward, as an example. So that's their move. You see a wheel you take from the longest edge. If I now wanted to do a bit more wheeling, it'd be 2 inches that way. Do you see where I'm coming from? So I'll just take it back to here and show you one more time. So I'll wheel 2 inches. So you go like this, you wheel, and then I'll wheel a few inches this way, maybe quite sharply, and then you just move forward a bit or something like that. That's an example of movement with movement trace. Because the really important thing is this facing is where you can shoot from. So you can only shoot forwards, obviously. Otherwise, if they all shoot sideways, they're all going to shoot each other in the head. So it makes perfect sense. Now this is obviously important for charges as well, and we're going to get into that once these guys have had their turn, so to speak, because I'm not going to actually be rolling dice for it. So now we go from there. That's really it. After the remaining moves, that's it. You're going head on to the magic phase. So even if this unit doesn't move, I mean, it won't move because it wants the shooting bonuses, because at this range it's pretty dead anyway. So now that we've done that and we've shown the movement phase in this particular occasion, I'd like to now switch to this unit and talk about charging. So charging is done ever so slightly differently to this, very differently in the ninth age to most other games. Mainly because in the movement phase, it's one of the first things you do are declare charges. Now what you do is you go, I declare this charge, this unit into that one, pop your dice by the side and you say, okay, what's their reaction? So after you declare this initial charge, this unit here can declare a charge reaction. So stand and shoot, hold, flee, etc. Now this is important. You don't get to see if they make it in first. It doesn't quite work like that. It's you declare that they are going to charge and you roll the dice later. So it means you can't just go, oh, I'll run them in, oh, they didn't make it, I'll send someone else in. They both have to be declared at the beginning. So this unit has declared a charge. These guys have gone for a hold instead of a stand and shoot for some unknown reason, and now we roll our dice. So 2d6 is 9. Now when you're declaring a charge, you take the 2d6 roll plus your movement. Now obviously these guys are movement 3, so that is giving them a total of maths 12 inches. Now obviously you can see 12 is plenty. When you go to move your charge, it works slightly more restricted than a regular movement. So when you go to charge move, you can move forward as much as you like, and you can perform a single wheel up to 90 degrees. So for example, I'm going to want to maximize here, okay? I'm going to want to get the most number of models I can. Well, I think you have to anyway. But why would you not want to? So with this ridiculous move that I now have, this 12-inch move, I can just say, okay, well, I want it so that these corners line up. So I'm going to wheel a smidgen, and then I'll just push it all the rest of the way in, and then boop, we've made contact. Now it doesn't end there. Obviously I had plenty of movement, but now that I've made contact with this unit, there is a part of the movement called closing the door. Now as the active charging player, I am required to align the units first, i.e. closing the door. So this corner stays in contact here, and this corner swings around, oh, careful, And there you have it. 2 units are locked in combat. Now, like I said, this is different to most games in the fact that it takes place in the movement phase. It's the first thing you have to do. So there's no like, oh, if I don't kill them with shooting, I'll charge later. You have to make that tactical decision early on, whether you reckon you can kill them through shooting or not. And I think that really plays into the tactical element of the Ninth Age. And it's why I wanted to do this video, just to kind of explain the very basics of movement. Now, we're not going in depth, we're not talking about adding extra banners or particularly things like the other bits of line of sight, or charging down a hill, or charging into a flank or anything. This is really just to talk about the basics of movement, and just so you can get a grasp for it. Obviously, there are other special rules mentioned in the rulebook, but I thought it would just be a good idea to discuss how different it is to most other games. Because, for example, if these guys are back here, and I have another unit, I don't know, I've got some handgunners of my own, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe I can kill a few of these guys. Okay, if in the shooting phase I don't kill any, this unit then can't charge afterwards. This unit's a sitting duck. So you really have to weigh up your options and know what each unit can do so that you can commit in the movement phase to a plan. And that strategic element of this game makes it very, very unique in the wargaming world, because obviously in things like 40k there's redundancy. If the shooting doesn't work, you've got the assault phase. But in the Ninth Age, you have to make that decision early on, and I think that is a selling point, in my opinion, of the game. You know, it's something I like about it, that extra level of tactics. Now, like I said, this is obviously very basic. I'm still getting to grips with the rules myself, but I hope that it provided a suitable illustration as to how different the movement is and how important it is to get right. Because obviously, if this unit was facing this way, like that, this unit aren't in their front arc, because the front arc is here, so they're missing out. So these guys can't declare a charge on them. So that means earlier on in your movement, you messed up. Basically, you messed up. So instead of being able to charge them and do damage, I have to reform, or swift reform, and then they get another turn of shooting on me. So you can see how movement becomes so key. Also when it comes to getting flanks off. So if this unit was stood like this, well, they're not in my front arc anymore. So now I get my flank charge. So you can just see how movement tees up an awful lot going on in the game later on down the line. And so it's really, really key to not make any mistakes in the movement phase. It strikes me as the kind of phase where you might not necessarily win the game with movement, but you can sure as hell lose the game through poor movement and poor tactical decisions in that element. So thank you ever so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Of course, leave your comments below. Let me know what you want me to cover. Obviously, I am taking it very slowly, step by step. I am going to do a video on deployment once I get the other 2/3 of this table set up in the next coming days. I mean, they're all ready. They're on the side, but Harry's going to come around and we're actually going to play a game of the Ninth Age, and we're going to do it tutorial styled. So taking you through step by step. It's going to be 1,000 points. We're going to go through it nice and slowly. We're going to do dice rolls. We're going to talk about tactics whilst we're playing and what we think is a good idea. And if you guys want to comment on that video in the future and tell us that we're stupid, by all means, because we are still beginners. But I want to introduce this game to people because it's exciting me. It's getting me want to play war games more regularly. I want to paint more models and all those good things. So that is the reason for the entry-level content that I'm producing, to be able to get other people to the stage where I'm at now, where I'm starting to read a bit more and try and write a few more lists with a few more ideas and things like that. So if you could leave your comments below in this video talking about maybe movement tactics. If there's anything I have missed, then like I said, this is obviously a very entry level, but if there's anything you think I've missed, put it down in the comments below and I will try and address it in a future video, if not the battle report that Harry and I are playing. And what would you like me to cover next? Obviously there's an absolute wealth in this game that I can cover, and obviously I'd prefer it to be sort of more entry level because I'm more comfortable with that. But yeah, just make your recommendations below, and as ever, thank you ever so much for watching. It's been me, Callum from Tabletop Banter. Don't forget, have fun.